Hey everyone, and welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to do a basic tutorial on charcoal drawing. If you've been watching my channels, I've been doing some charcoal drawing, and I just want to say up front, I don't have any formal art training. I'm self-taught, so I want to show you some techniques that I've learned over the years, and I want to make it into a tutorial that should be easy to follow, and hopefully you'll start doing your own charcoal sketches for pleasure. So what I want to accomplish on this tutorial is talk about choosing paper, choosing your pencils, sharpening, and then some basic technique. Okay, so first of all, when I do my sketches, I choose a pad that is a very cheap spiral sketch pad that has this cream colored rough paper that has some grit, and the grit makes a nice sound, as you can see. And I picked this mostly because it's fun to sketch on if I'm not gonna try to undertake a major work of art, and it produces a pleasant sound. So that's the purpose of this paper. And you can obviously choose any paper you want, but for sketching I don't like to use expensive paper. Now when I do a major piece of work to sell or something more permanent, I like to pick good quality Bristol board or something that's something permanent that people can frame or display better. But this is just sketch paper. So this is what I'm going to use for this tutorial. Another reason I choose this sketch paper is because you can do three-dimensional effects, like with the dark and the white. You can accomplish cool effects like that too. So because when it goes up against this cream background, you have three dimensions of color, and that kind of leads me into choosing the pencils. So for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to pick 3 pencils to use. A soft charcoal pencil, 4B, a medium charcoal pencil, 2B, medium, and white charcoal. And the reason for these choices is I like to use the medium to do my basic drawing and sketching. I like to use the soft for deep, dark colors, and I use the white to lighten up or produce those three-dimensional effects. So that's the purpose of that. But and when it comes to buying your charcoal pencils, I say go cheap. I have not ever found any great difference between different charcoal pencils. Some people may disagree with that, but you can find these almost anywhere, at any store. So next, let's talk about sharpening. This is just your regular hobby pencil sharpener that you can get pretty cheap. Now, when I use more expensive tools, I use a high-quality metal sharpener, and I put it in a little Ziploc bag, and I hope to show something like that on a future tutorial. But when it comes to sharpening charcoal, you need to remember that charcoal is very, very brittle. So when you sharpen it, don't put any pressure on the pencil into the sharpener. Just let the sharpener do the work. Just gently place it in there and turn it, and be patient. Because if you put too much pressure on it, the charcoal will break off in the end. You don't want that, because then you're wasting your charcoal. So just let the blade in there do the work. As you can see, I'm not putting any pressure on this. It may take a little longer, but you'll get a nice, good tip to do your drawings with. Now, since this is a basic lesson, this is not a good detailed pencil sharpener. Sometimes you might want to check and make sure there's not a little piece of charcoal in there. and you get a tip that you can work with. You can sharpen your white charcoal. Just remember, don't put pressure when you sharpen charcoal pencils. Let the blade in there do the work. Okay? Alright, so now we got some good tips. Another thing you can do, if you want a particularly fine tip and you don't have a good sharpener, is rub the pencil against your paper and shape the tip. Like this. You can get a sharper tip that way. Now, some drawbacks to this kind of drawing paper are, although it produces a good sound for drawing, it doesn't lend itself very well to finger shading, which is a pretty important part of charcoal drawing. So you can only finger shade just a little bit before the paper will start to come apart. And the same goes for erasing. This is just your regular old gum eraser. You have to be very careful and try to use a very delicate kneaded gum eraser like this for your charcoal drawings. And you know, the way to work this is to knead it. And when you get a lighter color, it'll erase better. You see? Now, I don't do a lot of erasing when I do my pictures. I just do I have a style, and now we're working up to the technique part. So, let's talk about a little bit of technique. Now, the way I like to draw is I hold my pencil in a certain way. You might have noticed if you watch my videos that is kind of similar to how left-handed people hold their pencil. And I put the bottom of my hand very flat. And I grip the pencil with actually a thumb and 2 fingers. So it gives me superb control of the pencil. And I use my index finger to sort of maneuver the pencil. Now, obviously, you don't have, I'm not recommending that you change your whole style of holding your pencil, because that can be really hard to do, but this is just the way I like to do it. And when I do lines, I do a series of short strokes rather than long lines. And the reason for that is the shorter the stroke, if you do screw up, you don't have as much to erase. I do occasionally do long deliberate lines, but not very often. Now, this is a sketch. If you're really going to do a major portrait, you'd want to go through some different steps that we can talk about in further videos. But when just doing a quick sketch, I like to just kind of sort of blaze through the whole thing with a series of short strokes. So I like to sort of work out my sketch at first. As you're sketching, try to sort of know where your light's going to be, so you know not to apply too much charcoal if a place is going to be more well lit. Remember, this is for fun. Always draw for fun and pleasure and relaxation. don't ever let it turn into something that you dread or you feel pressure to do. I always like to draw just for pleasure. It's relaxing and it relaxes other people to watch. When I was young, I used to love to watch my mother draw pictures. And it would relax me. Anything, just any old picture. And she drew some really good pictures. I always found it very relaxing. I first realized that I had ASMR after reading about it on the internet, because I used to do searches for certain videos that were unintentional ASMR. And because when I was young, I would always love to watch someone flip through a book or a magazine. And then before long, someone figured out that there really is something to it. And it is an awfully relaxing thing. But I actually do get the whole tingle sensation. I have found that it's hard for me to intentionally induce an ASMR reaction. It typically happens accidentally. So when I least expect it is when I'll start to get an ASMR reaction. When I do eyes, I always remember to leave a little square in them to show light. A little white square. When I do noses, I try to do as little detail as possible and leave the rest to shading. When I do lips, I typically do a dark area, but I leave a lot of it blank to show the shine of the lip. There's kind of a map to the face. And when you do enough faces, you start to figure out bone structures and facial structures, and you start to know exactly where to start to apply the shadow. And you have the cheekbones. I'm going to just do a little bit more. And try to remember where your light's coming from. So in this picture, light's coming from this side. When I draw hair, I usually start out with just dark color, and then I add the hairs in, so there's no questions to what they're supposed to be. But I don't have to add in very many. But you might want to random hair here and there. Now you want to start going in and doing your details with your darker pencil. Do those details that the medium couldn't do. Try to pick the places where you'd want the darkest shades. Like right about here. But leave some light in there. Kind of a little dark right here. Oh, dark here. And then apply a little less pressure to get the dark a little less. And go ahead and add some light where the light should be. Where you want lighter areas. Then go back and do a little finger shading. Soften it up a little bit. And as you soften it, you'll see that you often will create little details and textures. Try not to finger shade on details that you want to keep, like eyes and so forth, or mouths. Just try to do areas where you really want shadow, softer colors. With your finger, get some charcoal on it. You can go back in and add a little texture and detail. You can always go back in and do some finer details. Do a little shade around the eyes. Now in this case, if you want to really make your picture stand out more, you can create this suggestion of a background, which basically means take your dark charcoal. You don't have to color the whole paper in, but you just do the suggestion of the background. And this is a way to contrast a little bit. If you want to add more light to the picture, what I usually like to do, as you'll see, is I like to do this, just the suggestion of the background, but I dissolve it. If you've ever seen that famous portrait of George Washington that's unfinished, that's what I always think of when I do this. Is you see that picture and you see George Washington, but you don't really think about it being unfinished because your brain sort of fills in the rest. And that's why a lot of times I just do the suggestion of the background. It saves charcoal and time, and it also adds a little abstraction to your picture. And I like to do it surrounded by strokes like this. As you can see, still trying to maintain her hair. If you run out of charcoal, go to your handy dandy sharpener. Remember what I said about the sharpener. Let the sharpener do the work. Don't put pressure on the pencil. And that doesn't apply to every kind of pencil, but it certainly does apply to charcoal. So we're creating a suggestion of the background. So we know that this young lady is standing in front of a very dark background. shade your background. If you don't like the choppy look, then you can turn it into a blur. Remember what I said about cheaper paper then, is you have to be somewhat deliberate in your finger shading, because if you do it too much, you will literally take the paper right off. And you don't want to do that. But if you want to do a blur, this is how you accomplish that. You can also do this with a piece of paper, a rough piece of paper, because a smooth piece of paper won't pick up enough charcoal to actually do the blending. So what you want to try to do is blend it until the lines start to become so faint that it just looks like a blur. And you can accomplish this by doing little circles with your finger. And while you're at it, you can define your subject a little bit better. You can also go in and do a few shadow effects on it. Very easy, very relaxing. And sometimes, as you can see, when you do the blending, it all does some of the work for you. So you don't have to worry if you cross the lines a little bit, because what it really does is it creates a nice little shadow effect. It sort of hugs your picture a little bit, and you get a nice blurry, dreamy effect. Obviously, you can do this effect a lot easier with a charcoal stick, but I think we're just going to stick with the basics in this lesson. So now we have a young lady in front of a dark background. You can go back in and do a few lines here and there. Maybe she has a little bit more hair coming down here. Maybe she's been working all day. Her hair's coming out a little bit from underneath. Now you can go back and play a little bit with the fabric. Doing wrinkles is always kind of fun, because you can pretty much do them any way you want. Maybe you want to put a little shadow onto her collar here. Adds a little dimension. Maybe you might want to put a little texture on it. We got a little shadow going on here. A lot of drawing is just suggestion. It's creating the suggestion of this or the suggestion of that. And a lot of that is just achieved with a combination of lights and darks. In some ways you could even say it's making illusions, because to the viewer, a lot of times their brain will actually fill in details. They'll see past the picture. So, this is gonna wrap this up now. Very simple sketch. Not far from a masterpiece, but it was fun. And I hope you enjoyed watching it, and I hope you got something out of this tutorial. If anything, just a little bit of the pleasure that can be had in charcoal drawing. And I hope you enjoyed watching it, and I'm going to go ahead and sign this one off. Okay, and if you like this tutorial, let me know, and I'll be happy to do more. So please let me know, and can't wait to read your feedback. If you like the channel, please subscribe. Please leave comments. I like reading them, and I like to answer them. So anyway, until next time, enjoy.